Now that we've taken some time to learn about filters in general, let's jump in and look at a few examples of real-world filters in action. The first one we're going to look at is a customization to WP title. If we take a look at our index.php file, we could see that at the top we're echoing out WP title. We could see that we have the separator, whether we want it to echo or just be saved, and whether or not we want the separator to appear to the right or left. However, by default in WordPress, if we go and we look at our home page right now, we can see that nothing properly is displaying at the top, and if we look at the source code for the title, we can see that it's actually empty. If we were to go into our dashboard, because we don't have navigation at the moment, and open up one of the default posts, we can see that the title is displaying, so WP title is working. However, by default, it doesn't echo anything on the home page. So what we're going to do is open up our example file, WP title, and take a look at something that will allow us to add in the name of the site and get slightly better titles on our pages. What we have is an add filter to WP title, since that will affect this function. Right here. And then we're saying add to it our own custom function of WP title. We're going to apply this as a priority of 20, just so it will bypass anything at 10, as well as we need to note that it has 2 parameters. However, how do we know that this has 2 parameters? In order to find that out, we need to do a search of our entire WordPress install for apply filters WP title. When we search for and find this here, which is a file that we've looked at before, we will see that it gives it the default value, which is whatever the title was, and then a separator and a separator location. So this is 2 different parameters here that are passing through. Therefore, when we write out our code to add our own filter, we want to make sure that we're getting both of these parameters to use on our own. And we can see here that these are the title and the separator. So once we come into our function, we're getting the global page option, and then we're going to get the blog info name and append it to the title that's being passed. We're then running some conditional statements to check where we are, and if we're on the home page, we're going to echo out the title with the separator as well as the site description. At the very end, because this is a filter, we're returning the title so it could be used on the page. Now if we come into our functions.php file and make sure that we include WP title, when we refresh our page and look at it now, we'll see a much better title tag being echoed out that has the name of the site as well as the description. The next filter we're going to look at is using body class. Body class filter applies to the function that is often echoed out inside of the body tag like this. So if we look at our source code now and inspect the element, we can see that we have a body with a class that echoes out all this information. Home page, the page ID, the template that it's using, information that the admin bar is being displayed in, that we're logged in, and that there's customized support. This information changes depending on what page we're on. For example, if we come in and view our post page again, we could see that now it's displaying single post, etc. This is something that's really helpful to have in WordPress and something that we could easily extend using a filter. This makes sense because somewhere in WordPress, this string is being constructed, and a filter would allow us to grab that string, manipulate it, and then feed it back to the page before it's displayed. So if we open up body class example, we can see that we're tying into the body class, and we're referencing our function that we wrote up here called custom body classes. because there's only one parameter being accepted, which is the actual classes, we could leave that as blank since it's 1 by default. Now what we're doing is we're running a conditional statement in here that's checking to see what post type is currently being displayed. For example, post and page are default. However, if you're using a custom post type like portfolio, you could run it this way. However, we're going to use post just to test this. What we're saying is if we're on the post page, then go ahead and create a new class, add it to the array, and then return it. However, if we come to our page and go back to our home page, what we could see is that we're actually looking at a page here. So what we want to do is come into the customizer and change it from, I had it set up as a static front page, but you want to make sure that you're showing latest posts. And then when we echo out of there, functions.php, update this to body class example. Okay, so once we update the title and we're including the file correctly, we come to our home page and make sure that we have our latest posts displaying. And then when we look at the body class, we could see right here it's adding in custom class to the array. However, if we were to change this and instead of looking at posts, we look at pages as in our static front page, then we should see that this custom class does not appear. Likewise, if I were to change this to portfolio and had a custom post type of portfolio working, then it would only display in that example. Let's look at one more filter here, and this one's a little bit different. This one is actually going to run in the back end of WordPress on the Manage Post Columns filter. Let's go ahead and enable this inside our functions PHP and then see what it's doing. So we require it manage posts columns example. What this does is find the posts table on the back end of the site and let us change what columns appear. For example, if we open up our Manage Post Columns example and we comment all of this out, what we could see is that we have all of these fields that appear here. However, if we're working on a site where this doesn't really make sense and they're all the same author, or there's no categories, tags, or comments being used, you could simply unset them using the following method. So let's look at what's going on here. We have our filter that we've identified. We have our custom function. We have the parameter being passed. And then we're simply saying unset this value, or this value, or this value in order to remove them. Now, there is a question of how would you know what filter to be using in this case? And in this case, you'd have to try to figure out by searching around on Google or something like that, how to control what columns appear in the posts page. So we could do something like hook for post columns in admin area. And so I'd begin searching through things like this that have similar keywords, and eventually you'd come in and begin to find the actual filter that you want. However, this first step of figuring out the exact filter and what to use may be a little tricky, and you may have to search around for a while and try different ones until you find exactly what it is that you're looking for. Since we know that this is the one now, it makes sense how this is applied. However, what we've seen in these three examples are three different ways that we could filter content and types of content and number of parameters that are being passed into any function that we want to hook onto the filter. Hopefully these few examples have given you a little bit better understanding of how filters can be applied in the real world. Remember though, it may take a little bit of work to figure out exactly what filter you're looking for, and then what parameters it takes, and finally, what code you want to do. To help you along with this, make sure you look through the documentation, the source code, and search around in Google for other solutions that have already been implemented.